Okay, we going or no?
Yeah, you ready to rock and roll?
Yep.
All systems go.
All systems go.
Let's do it.
I'm here. Okay, now I do.
Hello and welcome to Transcendental Transformation, the place where spirituality and transformation unite. Host Miss Raina imparts truth so that you can break through your limiting beliefs and evolve into a deeper consciousness. As you go about your day, remember, before every breakthrough, there is a breakdown. And now, let's start the show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Transcendental Transformation. I'm your host, Miss Raina, and tonight is Tuesday, June 13th, 2017. We are coming live from the W4CY studios here in West Palm Beach, Florida, and hopefully all is well. If you guys were following my social media, I'm going to get right into it because I threw out my back. This week has been up and down for me. I threw out my back. I was walking out. I cleaned my house, and I was actually walking out from doing the carpets, and the carpet was a little wet. As soon as I stepped on the tile floor, all of a sudden I jerked like I was going to fall, and it kind of tweaked my back. So it's the same injury as always ever since the car accident that I had. So I was sitting around for the past 5 days, no softball, no gym. It made me so sad. I have to be active. So actually today was my first day back. It was very boring for me. It's hard for me to sit still. Someone who has a lot of energy, someone who likes to be active and do things. So what I decided to do was make the most of my time, and I decided to have a Harry Potter marathon. I love Harry Potter. I don't know, some of you may think I'm a dork for liking that stuff, but I don't know. It's the fantasy of it, the fun of it, and it seems like it's all good fun. So yeah, I watched all the episodes while I was just sitting around doing nothing. But on the other news, if you're looking at the video, because we're going to have the YouTube archive, then you notice that I'm wearing my Pittsburgh Penguins jersey because the Pittsburgh Penguins are back-to-back champions, and I'm so excited about that. I am a absolutely big hockey fan. It's the only really male sport that I follow other than the female sports of softball and swimming. But yeah, I'm so excited. I didn't think they were going to be able to do it this week, or I mean this year, I should say, not this week. But I didn't think that they were going to be able to do it. It's the fate sometimes has its way of working out, and it's just happy to see them repeat the way they did. So in good fashion, I am going to sport my jersey all week long, like I always do whenever any of my teams win championships, because that just shows my dedication to them. If you'd like to give us a call, you can call in at 561-623-9429. You can web chat us on the W4CY.com website, and you can download the W4CY radio app. And as I said, the video for the YouTube will be on youtube.com/Transcendental Transformation Radio Show. That's all one word. So tonight, let's get into the show, because tonight is all about feeling alone, unwanted, and misunderstood. It's a very special show because this has, so many of us struggle with this. So many of us struggle with acceptance in today's world, especially for us spiritual people, the people that have, maybe different gifts that a lot of people don't understand. I grew up as a psychic medium. I always saw people that weren't there, and even my family had a hard time. They would always tell me it was, oh, you're just imagining thing, or it's your wild imagination. And when you have emotional sensitivity, or you're a healer in a world that doesn't understand you, or you have some type of unique gift, making connections, making friends is very difficult. I know, for just speaking for myself, that I always had a hard time with friends. Still to this day, I have a hard time making friends, and no matter how close I am with certain people, I always feel a little disconnected from people. And I know that the people who are listening to this show could probably relate to this because that's why you're here. You're listening for that. But our to make a connection for acceptance, for us truly to have acceptance, we are looking for something deeper than just the average friendship. We're looking for something deeper than just the average relationship. We want that connection to be mentally and emotionally and spiritually charged, don't we? We want to find something that really makes us tick. And for a lot of the world, it's really disappointing, isn't it? It's if you crave that feeling, if you crave that oomph in your life, and you just want, and the only thing that seems to stimulate you is deep conversations, feeling a part of something is very difficult, isn't it? Because a lot of people have been conditioned to not really talk about anything other than, what's going on in the world. We don't know how to connect for a lot of us. And for some of us who really try to connect on a deeper level, a lot of times that makes us feel disconnected from everything. But how many of you don't feel a part of anything in life? How many of you struggle with being well liked, maybe have trouble making friends, and maybe you feel isolated? Isolation is kind of an idea that we create, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but a lot of us feel isolated. I bet you if I line up 100 people, a lot of us can say that, I feel kind of like I'm an island by myself, especially, like I said, us spiritual people or us intuitives or healers out there. But how many of us are also judged for who we are? And a lot of times we're written off. I as you guys, for you new listeners, if you guys have been listening to the show, but for you new listeners, you will hear I tell my life story all the time, and to kind of tell you that all of us have that kind of struggle with that connection. But it's when you sit there and you have this idea that of who you are, and you kind of start to figure things out, and then you open up to people. A lot of people do judge you. A lot of people will write you off before they get to know you, and that's hard, isn't it? If you're an emotionally sensitive person, it can make life very difficult for you, and rightfully so, right? Absolutely. Your thoughts of depression kick in, thoughts of hopelessness kick in, and a lot of us figure, why bother? I don't know how many times throughout my life I have people come to me that have special gifts, maybe in the healing arts or something like that, and they, and they're depressed all the time. They feel like they came here with this divine mission or this really specific mission to change the world, to make it a better place, and they get caught up in everything because everybody writes them off, everybody pushes them away, everybody thinks they're the weird ones. How many of you have been told that maybe you're weird or you're awkward, and that's hard to hear for some of us, and I don't know how many times I've been told I'm awkward. I constantly, even I joke around about it now. I'm always, even when I meet people, I'm like, I'm sociably awkward for a little while, but once you get to know me, you'll realize all my quirks and my innuendos and everything, just kind of make me who I am. But who wants to live life like that? And I bet you're probably sick of living life like that. If we have ideas of hopelessness, if we have ideas of depression, if we're always saying, well, why bother? Because no one's going to listen to me. No one's really listening to me. We're all too concerned with fighting and arguing and being right, and who's right over there. And, but who wants to live life without friendship? Who wants to live life without companionship? Or who wants to, do you want to live life where everyone's constantly judging you? Do you want to live a life where you're constantly depressed? And if you're always depressed, then we got to shift gears. We got to make sure that our idea of our life changes, because there's no way to live. It's absolutely no way to live, and you have to find, and we're going to talk about perception in a bit, but you have to find a way to change the perception about you. Because the first idea that we're going to look at tonight is being alone, is being isolated, and the people that don't fit in. And and this is all perception, and this is all perception of self-image. Because when we look at ourselves and we sit there and we say, well, what do we usually say? What is the thoughts that are going around in our mind when we're going to meet somebody new? Well, they're probably going to judge us. They're probably not going to understand me. They're going to maybe laugh at me or walk walk away. Hey, I've had trouble, and I'm going to tell all of you that even as a spirit guide, I have had trouble connecting with people, and even some of my relationships, romantic and non-romantic, have suffered because of this. And yes, there will be people out there that will judge you. There will be people out there that will perceive you to be that weird, awkward person. But you can't allow that struggle to turn real. And when you allow that struggle to turn real, it damages our self-image, because it tells us what we're really perceiving of ourselves. It tells us how we perceive ourselves and what we value. So let me ask you, what is it that you value? What is it that is important to you? The order of importance is something that I teach to a lot of my students, and even, and I talk about it with a lot of people, and you'll probably hear the order of importance so many times it'll make you sick. But, the order of importance is very important, a concept for you guys to understand, because what was the question I just asked you? What is it that you value? How do you perceive yourself? And the order of importance tells us what we're going to deal with first. How do we deal with ourselves? When conflict arises, when someone pushes back on us, when someone doesn't accept us, or when someone judges us or makes fun of us, how do we deal with ourselves? What is it that we invest our time with? Do you invest your time with yourself? Do you deal with yourself? Are you someone that accepts who you are, or do you see yourself as a problem? Do you accept the gifts that you've been given? Do you accept the talents that you have, or do you find them to be a nuisance? Because the order of importance tells us what we value. It allows us to take a step back and say, well, you know what, right now, I didn't think my life was going to be like this. When I was young, maybe you had friends when you were younger. Maybe you were popular when you were younger, and then things shifted. When I was younger, I was very outgoing. I really was. I was a total extrovert. I was always at the party. I was always making friends. I was always there. And even my family once in a while says, what happened to you? You've changed so much. You used to have all these friends, all these people calling you all the time, and now, you struggle to make friends. And I say, well, I got to look at, my priorities shift. Before, it was all about trying to make people, trying to build a life, trying to build all these external factors in my life. And now the order of importance is, what do I value? Well, because when I look back at it and I say, well, yeah, I had a lot of friends. I had all these things, and I'm sure at one point maybe you did. Maybe some of you really never had a lot of friends. But if we have those people, well, then what kind of quality are they? How do they perceive me? How do I perceive me in my circles? And so when I don't look at myself as dealing with myself, and you shouldn't either. You should look at yourself and say, well, Miss Raina, you just said how, the order of importance is how you deal with yourself. But how do you translate yourself? How do you perceive yourself and your self-image? What is it about you that you want to invest in time? If you've had friends, if you've had relationships, if you used to be one that dated from person to person, and now all of a sudden you've decided that you were going to go on this spiritual path of enlightenment, and you were going to find out who you were going to transfer who you were going to change everything about you. Well, everything's going to change then. But we don't have that concept in our mind, do we? We really a lot of times feel that we're going to transform ourselves and everything else in our world is going to stay the same. But it can't. If you are going to grow, if you're going to change your self-image, if you're going to allow yourself to accept yourself, because when we're young, we don't care about accepting ourselves, right? It's cool to be popular. We always want to be in the latest fashions. We always want to be the cool kid. We want to be the athlete or whatever it is that makes us tick. Those are the biggest things to us a lot of times, and self-perception. And when we get a little bit older, our values change. Spiritual people and sensitive people, and I'm talking to you emotionally sensitive people too, not just spiritual people, but even if you're not spiritual, but you're emotionally sensitive, you, as I said, you invest all your time in others. It's always about everybody else's needs. It's always about everybody else's wants and problems, isn't it? So where are we going to shift? Where are we going to change that shift from going outside to going inside? And if you've started to go inside, well, then there's going to be a lot of conflict. There's going to be a lot of things that arise. There's going to be a lot of things that, like I said, are going to have to change. You're going to have to investing your time into you, because we have spent our whole lifetime. If you're a downright giver, if you're one of those that overextend yourself, how many of you overextend yourself all the time? And I don't know too many people that are emotionally sensitive or mentally sensitive, or that are healers or anything, that don't give and give and give. And what ends up happening to you? You become really angry, don't you? You become bitter. You become like, I've given so much to this world. I've done so much for this, and what have they done for me? And it sounds a little egotistical, doesn't it? It sounds like a little child inside of us crying out and trying to find itself. But how can it? How can it have any attention when you are so busy trying to fix everybody else? You spend all your energy fixing things and fixing people, and you take on that role. You proudly wear that role as Mr. and Mrs. Fix-It. You want to be the go-to person. You want to make sure that you are the person that everyone comes to when a problem arises. And do you know how draining that is? Do you know what kind of position that puts people on? It is nice to help people. It is. But to what extent are you going to sacrifice yourself where you don't invest any time in you? You have to start finding time to say, you know what? Okay, people, a lot of people really don't want help. A lot of people just want that joining. A lot of people want that type of energy where they go to somebody and they get the wisdom, as I like to say, and all of a sudden then they go right back to their life and do what they're going to do over and over, and then they come running back to you each and every time. And hey, it tickles our fancy, it tickles our ego a little bit, because hey, they're coming to me, hey, I feel special. But that's not investing time in you. You really need to start investing time, because as I said, if you feel alone on a daily basis, if you feel unwanted by the world or even yourself, if you feel misunderstood, then this is a self-image problem. This has nothing to do with being spiritual. This has something to do with psychological. This has something to do with what we do in our life. This is how we perceive ourselves. Because as a spiritualist, as an energy healer, as whatever titles you want, I don't like titles, but whatever titles you want to put yourself on, that's the title that you're standing yourself up to in a role. And if you want to be that person that tries to fix everything, then you're going to have these continuous feelings, because you're saying to yourself, I'm not worth the time. Everybody else is. I mean, and a lot of us, how many times do we sit there and we say that? How many times have we been told throughout, even when I started in my spirituality, when I would hear people talk, well, we have to be selfless. We have to sacrifice things. We have to do, well, yes, there are things we have to be selfless on, but there are also things that you have to be selfish on. I'm very selfish when it comes to my health. I'm not going to give in. I mean, a lot of my friends laugh at me. I bring my own food to parties because I don't expect people to make extra dishes, and nor do I want to give in just because I'm trying to be polite. It has nothing to do with that. There has to be a point where you stop saying, well, I need to be selfless. And yes, to a point, to a healthy point, that I need to start focusing on me a little bit, because there's nothing, because one of the things, and I've even said this in the last 5 episodes, how many that we go out there, and a lot of healers have a problem when I say this, but most healers who try to do healing are really just trying to fix themselves. They're upset, and what they're trying to do is they figure that if they can fix the other person, if they can fix the world around them, then the world is easier for them to live in. And then that gives us a sense of purpose, right? Because if we have a sense of purpose, if we're out there fixing everything, and we have the self-image, and we have all these ideas, and everything's going on, well, then how can we feel alone? How can we feel unwanted? How can we feel misunderstood? And that's the question we have to ask ourselves, isn't it? We'll be right back after these messages from the Life of Raina.
A message from the Life of Raina. We live in a world faced with many tough challenges. Our lives become chaotic and filled with disaster ever so quickly, most of the time before we even realize. Our issues beat down our mental mindset, and an imbalance of emotions become prevalent. The Life of Raina is dedicated to helping people on the deepest spiritual level. Miss Raina, the creator of Transcendental Development and Growth, works on your core issues and finds the solutions which allow you to break free from the emotional bondages of life, helping you achieve the life you've always wanted to live. Isn't it time that you lived life for you? Call the Life of Raina 561-846-2190 and schedule your appointment today. That's 561-846-2190. Or email thelifeofraina@icloud.com.
Okay, we are back. You're listening to Transcendental Transformation with Miss Raina. If you'd like to give us a call in, it's 561-623-9429, or hit us up on the web chat, w4cy.com, and chat us up. So we're talking about being alone, being unwanted, and being misunderstood. And the thing that we talked before the little break was our self-image. How do we change this? What is it that we have to stop doing? And I said we have to stop. The second thing that we have to start doing is the first thing that I want, or actually the second thing I want you to do, is I want you to say, and I want you guys to say this, I want you to say that I created this awkwardness. I want you to start taking full responsibility for your life. Because it's easy for us to always point the finger. It's easy for us to start to say, well, it's the other people. It's the world's fault. It's the universe's. It's the God's fault. It's this. It's karma. It's fate. It's all these things. And we like to do that, don't we? We like to push our problems and the ideas on everybody else. But life isn't going to change. Life isn't going to be the life that you want until you learn to start taking responsibility for things. And, when I tell people that say, oh, I feel awkward and misunderstood, unwanted, and I say, well, you're creating this. They look at me like, they give me this funny look. And I say, well, yeah, you did. You created all of this. And they say, well, why? How? And you know what I say? Well, I'm glad you asked, because awkwardness and isolation is a feeling of insecurity. It's a feeling of fear. It's uncertainty. It's the brain's way of creating this illusion, this altered perception of reality, into making it feel that you're not wanted, and to making it feel that and you will purposely seek out the people that will reject you. Why? Because you wanted to. Because the idea of that you've accepted is that I am alone, I am unwanted, and I am misunderstood. And you have to say, you know what? Hey, I take full responsibility from this moment on. I'm going to say, you know what? I created this situation. I created this awkwardness. I created a reality to where I have to focus, where everybody around me. And you know what? Those people that don't get me, well, we're going to have to move on. We're going to have to learn to let go. And, attachment is one of our greatest heals. It's our Achilles heel, because as humans, our brain loves attachments. Our heart, our soul, and our actual brain, not the heart brain, but our actual brain loves attachments. We love to get attached to things. And you are attached to this idea that life is supposed to be a letdown, that nobody's ever going to understand, that nobody gets you, that nobody wants you. And this is what the victim, what it does to us, is the victim takes a hold of us. But, you have to figure out who it is you are. You have to figure out who you are, because you will constantly create this uneasy feeling. Did you know, because we all say quantum physics and all this stuff has already proven everything in this world is energy. Even matter that we think that it's not is energy. But so if we're all energy, and we all have these auras, and we all have these energy fields going on, well, if we believe that our energy is awkward, if we believe that thing that people aren't going to guess, what kind of energy do you think? Is our energy going to be free flowing? Is our personality going to be free flowing? No, it's going to create this standoffish, this uneasy feeling, and others are going to feel it. Even if people are welcoming to you, even if people are accepting you, and you already are pegging them as they're going to reject you, well, then they're going to, because you're going to create that energy, and they're not going to know how to deal with it. They're not going to be uncomfortable. They're going to be themselves. you're going to have this wall, you're going to have this energy field, and they're going to feel unsure just like you. And then how many times have we been in an awkward situation where someone says hi to us and then you say hi back, and then all of a sudden you have no clue what to say? That's our insecurity. That's our fear coming out. Well, what do I say to this person? I don't know what this person. What is this person about? And we have all these silly little thoughts that constantly play in. And that's why I say our brain is really tricky, because our brain wants control. It constantly wants to have these ideas running around in our mind, kind of like a bunch of little wild dogs running around. And we have to learn to stop it. And, one of the things that you have to learn to let go of is your past pain. Your pain haunts you. People who feel this way, people who have poor self-image, poor self-esteem, have been hurt. You have been hurt so dearly. Your trust has been broken. You play the victim, and trust me, people who feel this way play the victim. They're one of the best at playing the victim role. But everybody's out to get you, isn't it? And the world is what you want to make it. I could sit here, and as a female, I could sit there and say, well, yeah, it's a male dominant society, and there's male chauvinism. And I could say all these things if I wanted to play that role. But you know what? I go out there, I compete with men, I compete with all these different things, and I try, and I don't care if someone likes females working in a male dominant society. I don't care about that. What I care about is how I view myself, because I believe in myself. I know that I can get anything done. And you know what? I'm sure there's male that try to enter a female dominated thing, such as nursing or whatever, and all of a sudden they have the same ideas. And so, but if our trust is broken, not only with the world and the people around it, but with ourselves, you don't trust yourself. You don't believe in yourself. And as long as you play that victim, as long as you truly believe that everybody out there is out to get you, you're going to build this wall so high, so sky high, that nobody's going to be able to jump it. And how can you possibly have a group of friends? How can you possibly let in a relationship? How can you possibly get the jobs and all these things that you want when all you feel is that everyone's going to hurt you? And our past pain is the shadow that follows us, right? If you're emotionally sensitive, I guarantee you right now, you guys could probably remember mostly everybody that has really stuck it to you. Anybody that's really broken your heart, anybody that's really done a number to you, or at least how you perceive it, I guarantee you can remember that day so clearly. I bet you right now that some of you have ideas already popping up in your head of people that have hurt you. Why? Because that's what the victim does best. The victim constantly reminds you, oh, remember this? Remember this time when this happened? Remember, everyone's out there. You put your trust in people. You put your trust in this idea, and it didn't work. And so, hey, I got to protect you. I got to protect you here because I don't want you getting hurt. And in that false idea of protection, what ends up happening? You're alone. You're unwanted. You're misunderstood because your perception of who you are is broken. How can you connect to anybody if you have that wall? How can you feel a part of anything or something if you have that wall? There's that disconnection, not just physically, but there's an emotional disconnection with yourself. There's a spiritual disconnection. There's a mental disconnection. And you have to be able to put the pieces together. You have to take a step back and say, you know what, I have to take responsibility for myself because I've been blaming everybody else. One thing that I always tell people is self-doubt will always find self-doubt. Plain and simple. You want to doubt yourself, you will always find self-doubt in everything that you do. On the softball field, I may not even be the most talented person out there, but I believe that every time that ball is hit out to me in that outfield, that I'm just as good as those men and even better. And I can catch it. I can out hit them. I can do whatever because I believe in myself. And even like I said, even if I'm not more talented, but because my mindset is there, because I trust myself to do what is necessary, I can do anything I want. And it's not about gender. It's not about sexuality. It's not about anything. It's a mindset of self-image and how you perceive yourself. And until, if you can continue every single day feeling sorry for yourself. Because I have friends that I talk to all the time, and and some that I grew up with, and they sit there and you have a conversation. Oh my God, my life's just, I never thought it would be like this. I thought it was there. I'm by myself all the time, and da 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 da, and the beat goes on. And then you tell them stuff, and you say, well, why don't we try? Okay, well, and then all of a sudden the next day you see the post, oh well, my life sucks, and da da da, and they go right back to it. If you want to change, you will. But you're not going to. You have isolated yourself, because pain creates that. Pain purposely creates the disconnection because of those ideas of trust. You mentally and emotionally shut down. You get worried that you're going to hurt by connecting to other people. So it's like this self-sabotage idea that you're going to go out there and try, and then but you're really not trying. And what ends up happening is, boom, you create this idea of this self-sabotage, this victim, this broken trust. And even if you connect with somebody right away, you find a way to destroy it. You do. You do. And so that's the reason why I said the first thing we have to say is, hey, take responsibility. I have my arm up in the air and say, hey, I created this awkwardness. I created this aloneness. I created this misunderstood. Why? Because I have low self-esteem, and that's okay. And that is okay. It doesn't matter. We all have had that. I have broken trust. I have pain I play the victim. We have all been down that road. Even me, several times, when people always ask me, well, Miss Raina, didn't you enjoy being who you are? No, because when my guides, the guides that I work with, Lori, Mox, Silviana, Luciana, et cetera, when I went and they said, well, Miss Raina, you're going to be, and people are going to judge you. They're not going to believe you. They're not going to listen to you. They're going to do all these things. Do you think I wanted that? No, I would rather be the at the time, I would rather be the popular person, the one that was loved, the one that was good at sports, etc. Why do I want a life when I was younger? Why do I want a life when I'm older that people aren't going to understand? But it didn't have anything to do with them. It had to do with me. It had to all do with me and what I concerned myself with. Where was my order of importance? Was my order of importance was making people understand me? Was it making people happy and sunshine and rainbows? Was it fixing people? Or was it loving myself? Was it believing in myself? And regardless of people are going to say nay to me. People are going to say yay to me, no matter what I say and do. So it doesn't matter. My message is the same no matter what. Why? Because of these ideas. And one time I felt this way. I know how you guys feel. I know exactly how you feel. And you know what? The more the pain festers, the more these ideas fester, you start spewing that anger. You start getting really angry, don't you? And you become bitter. And that anger eats at you, and everyone's stupid. Nobody gets it. Everybody's and you have this, and you're falling apart. Anger kills us all. Anger is the death. I don't know. There was a saying that people who hold on to anger, it's like holding on to a hot coal in your hand and expecting others to feel the pain. And this is all you. Your life is all about you. And no matter how many times I say that, until you understand that. And I had my protege a couple of days ago, maybe 4 days ago. And he was like, well, didn't you always want to help the world? And I said, yes, when I was younger, I wanted to help the world. And my priorities have changed. The first thing I wanted to do was help myself, help me understand who I was, because the disconnection between my mental and emotional, the disconnection between my spirituality, because I was afraid that somebody was going to hurt me, that somebody was going to let me down, because I've put my trust in those people and they've done that, made me falter. But it also helped me understand how to pick myself back up. It also helped me understand how I can deal with my anger. This is why the program that I created works so well, is because I know what it's like to come undone at the seams, to lose control of anger and depression and sadness and grief and all these chaotic emotions, even get so happy that I misread people and all of a sudden chaos erupts. So let's shift gears here. As many of us, we try to develop our spiritual growth, right? That is the point to that's the point to living, right? Is to learn about ourselves and to grow. And you must learn to develop an identity. If you don't learn to develop an identity, and this is something you struggle with, this is one of the biggest things because you don't know who you are. What is the personal identity? What is it? What is it? It's important to growth. Yes, we know that. But personal identity, it nourishes the soul. It enriches our lives because we know who we are. And yet at the same time, personal identity changes all the time. Every year I make a joke out of it. Actually, twice this year, my personal identity has already transformed. So at the beginning of this year, and then a month ago, it decided to shift gears, and I said, hey, let's roll with it. Let's see what Miss Raina's about this year, because you have to allow that to grow. Personal identity is not about what you do, what you like, what your hobbies. It has nothing to do with your friends and family, how many things you're into. It has nothing to do with personal. Me being a softball player has nothing to do with who I am. It's something that I enjoy to do, but it has nothing. This radio show is not my personal identity. My personal identity is who I am and what nourishes me. Where do I put my order of importance? And I'm going to keep going back to that. I'm going to go back to it and back to it and back to it until you understand that the order of importance has to start with me. Can you say that? Can you say that, hey, I need to start with me. I need to put myself first. And I know you parents, especially you mothers out there, are going to have trouble with this, because what do we always tell ourselves? Well, the kids come first. Everything's got to come first. I have to sacrifice myself for these kids. And you're not doing anything. You're not doing any good if you're sacrificing yourself without taking care of yourself first. So what is our identity? What is it? What is it that is true about you? Without getting into your likes, without getting into your hobbies, can you think past our hobbies? Can you think past the things that we do? Can you think past the things that we like? If you can't, it's because you've never tried. You've never tried to go back and say, who am I? What am I about? What if I was going to put myself first? If I'm going to stop this self-doubt, if I'm going to take away my pain, if I'm going to disconnect from my pain just for a minute, well, what am I about? What is the things what is my essence about? What is the light inside of me? And you know what? You're going to find out that you may not even know who you are. You may find out that you're somebody so different than what you expected that, it may bring tears to your eyes. And these identities, as I said, we cannot hold attachments to it, because Miss Raina is not the same Miss Raina last year as I am now, or 5 years ago. I don't know anybody. If our body ages, our cells change out every 7 years. We're a completely different person in every way, even physiologically, by every 7 years, because every 7 years, our cells completely change. So we're not that same person. But as we mature, others seem boring to us, don't you? If you're emotionally sensitive, hey, life can be boring. People can seem boring. Conversations can seem boring. We can dislike the drama. As we grow, we like to disconnect from the drama and the hate and the shallowness, right? But at the same time, aren't we in this? At the same time, if we're spewing that anger, if we're spewing that self-doubt, if we're playing that victim that everyone's going to be mean to us and hurt us, aren't we in that drama that we're in, that we're trying to get out of? Life is tricky, but it's also easy at the same time if you just learn to pay attention. If you learn to become aware of who you are, and you learn to know who you are, it changes. And you know what? You are going to find out, because people who are spiritually mature, I don't like small talk. I don't. But that doesn't mean I can't have small talk with somebody that enjoys it. I'm not going to put them down because they like small talk. I'm not going to stand around for somebody talking about somebody else. That I will stop in its tracks, because that's just who I am. But, yes, I don't like drama. I don't like hate. I don't like shallowness. But at the same time, I'm understanding of where others are too. And you have to learn to be understanding of others. You have to learn to accept people for who they are. If you're trying to change the world, it's the only person you're trying to change is yourself. Because the only way you think you're going to change the world is by changing others. And this is why things get to you. This is why all these little things start to annoy us, because our soul craves more. When you start to unfold, when you start to lose the pain, when you start to release and say, you know what, these situations that happened to me, they weren't out to get me. They were here to teach me something. They were here to make me who I am today. And you know what, the people that caused me the most pain actually did the greatest favor in my life, because they taught me something that nobody else did. But when we get older and we have this pain, then we shift our gears, we shift our perception. So when we get to past the pain and we start to push and we start to crave more, we want that deeper conversation. We want that connection. And you know what? I'm going to tell you, the friends that you've had, and I tell everyone this that I start to train, anyone, I say the people that you know now will not be the people that you know by the end of this, by the time we're done. And they look at me, I said, your relationships with your husband's wife, children, everything will change. Sometimes you will lose friendships, sometimes you will gain them, but it's not about that. It's about where you're at. And as we all know, like attracts like, right? We all like to do it. If you're spiritual, you've heard that conversation, you've heard that idea, like attracts like. So the people who you attract now, my grandma used to say a long time ago, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. And there's a reason for that, right? Because why? Because the idea of like attracts like. And so if you're the victim, you will find that. If you're the people that have been broken trust, you will always find that person. If you want a deeper connection, then find it with yourself first. Because you can't find it out there unless you know what you're looking for. It's that simple. It makes sense, right? If you're sitting here listening, it makes sense. If I want, how do we, you don't go on a treasure chest hunt or play a game without instructions, right? You don't have, if you're going and you have game night and you're going to play a game, a board game or something, there's no map on the board. Oh yeah, hey, take up your piece and go ahead. Well, how do you know what you're looking for? How do you know what you're supposed to do? So get to know yourself in that way. If you find others boring, it's because of this pain. It's because of this judgment. It's because of this. It's because you're creating that. You seek that real friendship and you seek that family, but you don't know how to have it with yourself. If you don't have that relationship with yourself, you will not have it with anybody else. And you may not like the hate. You may feel that the world is wasting your time, but that in itself is hate. Anytime you reject others without understanding, that's hate. That's closed-mindedness. And don't think that, I don't care how much spirituality, I don't care how many classes you've taken, how open-minded, if you reject some idea or somebody just because they have a difference of opinion, or you instantly shut something down because it doesn't agree with what your brain says, then hey, that's closed-mindedness. And if you become angry at that, if you become and you just shut them down and you just push them away, then you are doing the same thing that you fear yourself. And maybe that's where the problem lies. Have you ever taken a look? Do you shut people down? Do you think that you know everything? Do you look at it and say, well, this is the conversation I want. These are the ideas I want. And if it doesn't come to me in this way, it's not good enough? Because I know a lot of you spiritual people do that. I've run into it. I know some of you guys are so angry and so hard-nosed and been so hurt that wall is like Fort Knox, and it's going to make sure that every little person bounces off of it like a gnat. And that's the big problem. When we create that anger, when we become that hard-nosed, when we become that unforgiving, that victim, the Debbie Downer, depressed or hopelessness, it's because of those reasons. It's because of the identity. It's because of the low. You have to transform with it. You have to be able to do this. As your spiritual growth changes, your energy changes, and so do you. And each year you're going to change. Embrace it. Don't be afraid to let go of the things and ideas that you once hold on to or that you hold value to, because those ideas are what's keeping you in this idea of being alone or stuck or misunderstood. Attachment is something we will go over and over in this radio show over and over, because attachment is in our life every single day. If you can't appreciate friendships for what they are and for the moments, without saying, oh well, we're going to be best friends forever and I can't see us splitting apart, then we're attached to these ideas. If you honestly think, I have a friend that texted me the other day and they said, well, Miss Raina, I have a friend they're losing their mother and I'm just so upset and because they're attached to this idea that death, or as I like to call transition, because I hate the word death, but transition is like you're losing someone. And I sat there and said, yes, it is tough. It is tough during transition, and they're allowed to mourn, they're allowed to grieve. But the harder you hold on to this idea that you're losing them, the harder it is for you to deal with your grief. And when you realize that, yes, in the physical form, you don't see him anymore, but my dad has been gone for 4 or 5 years. I talk to him all the time. As a matter of fact, I probably talk to him more now than when he was alive. And sometimes I want him to go away, but I love my dad, and that's the idea, is that idea of holding on to something. Your struggle with yourself, with your friends, stop the war inside your head. Stop this idea of judgment. Stop, because they're not the only ones judging you. You're prejudging others. You're prejudging how things are going to set up, how things are going, and even if things are going to fail. Emotional and mental levels are going to be different. If you truly believe that others think like you and they don't, and you shut that out, then you're going to find that in your life. People may not process ideas like you. Everyone processes things different. Everybody is different in this idea, and you have to learn to accept that. My brain processes things very fast, where sometimes I can have multiple conversations. And one of the biggest things that I had trouble with when I was a child, even my young adulthood, was that I could process something so fast, and if someone didn't catch up to me, I got mad at them. I was like, come on, this is so easy, let's go, come on, chop. And people would just look at me, and my mom would say, Raina, you got to slow down sometimes. You got to be accepting of others. You got to be able to understand that maybe they're not, it's not that someone's stupid, it's just that someone doesn't process things. And I said, Mom, yeah, it does get infuriating. It's because I'm not understanding them. So focus on what your capabilities are. And I don't mean what your talents are, what your gifts are. I mean, focus on your capabilities of who you are. Say, where's my order of importance? What am I going to have? What is it that if I put me first, what is it? Where are my capabilities? If I even my children and everybody else, schoolwork and all these ideas that we have that are supposed to be processed, that I put before me, changing the world, making the world a better place. If I put these ideas away and I say, okay, I'm going to focus on me, then where am I going to focus? What are my capabilities? Where am I going to do it? Because if your capabilities go deeper, your mind goes deeper, you start to become aware. Sure, things are going to change, friends are going to change and everything, but think of the growth. Think of the isolation that's no longer going to be there. Think of those feelings of love and compassion towards yourself and feeling wanted. You can sit there and be in a crowd of 1 million people and still feel lonely. And that, if that doesn't tell you that that's your perception, then nothing else will. So I want you to focus on you. I want you to start saying and taking responsibility for who you are in your life. Start learning that, this is all you. This is all your choice. Because when you start learning to start making your own choices, you're going to find out that it's so well worth it, that everything in life is so well worth it. You will find the friends, you will find the connection that you're looking for. So you have 2 choices in life. 1, take responsibility, or feel alone, unwanted, or misunderstood. All right, everybody, that is tonight's show. I hope you enjoyed it. We are next week. I'm not sure what kind of show we're going to do yet. I haven't even prepared for it. But if you'd like to follow us, you can follow us on our Facebook at facebook.com/Transcendental Transformation Radio Show. You can follow us on our YouTube at youtube.com/Transcendental Transformation Radio Show. Visit my website, soulandspiritguide.com. Email us at transcendentaltransformations@gmail.com. Don't forget to visit the the W4CY website and download the W4CY app. And remember to always believe in yourself. And it's not our abilities or our talents that make us who we are, but it is our choices. Thank you and have a wonderful week.
Oh.